I'd now like to introduce Mr. Bruce Patten from Pattens Group. Bruce is the Managing Director of Pattens Group, a company that specialises in obtaining grants for businesses. That always sounds good. Over the past 25 years, the Pattens Group has secured over 425, that looks like million. Is that right? 425 million in grants for businesses with a 99% success rate. Prior to forming Pattens Group, Bruce was the Group Financial Controller for the highly successful bionic ear company, Cochlear. Bruce, maybe perhaps we'll start with your experience at Cochlear. I mean, that's obviously a company that most people are familiar with and certainly one that's kind of recognised for their innovation capability.
That's true. I mean, you look at Cochlear today, and let's get rid of a myth. Just because Cochlear had an invention didn't mean it was going to be successful. A lot of people think if I had a technology like Cochlear, it's going to get up. I dealt with a company called Ventricore that had developed an artificial heart, absolutely brilliant technology. That company doesn't exist today. So your business can be successful irrespective. I mean, all you've got to do to encourage you, look at McDonald's. What a crap product. But don't they get a lot of sales? And I've heard that burgers are better at Hungry Jack's, but they don't do as well. So,
are you being paid for this or not being paid for this?
No, I'm not. So I just want to open people's mind to thinking you don't have to be a Cochlear to be successful or to get funding. If I go back to Cochlear in those days, we started with 6 people. We had technology which was fairly crude, unproven. We had developed a device where you actually stuck a platinum wire into someone's cochlea, their ear, and destroyed the nerves for all time. Will you give me some money? I don't think so. So as a group financial controller, I had to find money. At the time, there was a scheme called the computer bounty. The government, in their wisdom, or lack thereof, had decided that they were going to fund and develop a computer industry in Australia, the same way they did with, I guess, specific brands, you know, bonds, which, the car companies, steel industry. They were going to create this wonderful computer industry in Australia. I had a look at the legislation. I thought, I like that. So I put a claim in. They came out and laughed at me. As I have an accounting background, I was not offended. I'm used to that. And they said, Bruce, this is a hearing aid. Why are you wasting our time? And I said, well, it's not really a hearing aid, it's a computer. And I said, why do you think that? And I said, well, you've defined a computer in the Act. You've said it has to have a microprocessor. We've got one. It says able to process, store, manipulate data. I said, we take sound, we process it, put it out as electrical impulses. I think that meets your definition. I said, where's your monitor and keyboard, Bruce? You didn't say I needed one. If you want me to have one, put it in the Act. They were paying 25% of manufacturing costs to computer companies. They argued with me for too long. In the end, decided I was right, and they paid me $600,000 in the first year for manufacturing costs. We used that to develop an IC, and Cochlear took over from there. I mean, you might say that our initial application fell on deaf ears, but the technology still does.
Obviously, ladies and gentlemen, you might realise that this morning is in fact the start of Bruce's new career, which is the stand-up comedy routine. So we'd also like to give him the round of applause for that entertaining presentation. Now, let's get to specifics. Okay, so we have a lot of, in this room, we have a lot of cochlears in the embryonic stage, Bruce. So what grants are available for the people in this room?
Well, Veronica and Steve have touched on it. They said there's a lot of grants. Let's put it in perspective. There is over 600 grants available now. If there was a $10 million lottery, would you go out and buy a ticket? People do. You see the great streams of people. $10 million, yeah. There is over $50 billion available in grants. Why aren't people rushing out and taking it? Trust me, if you leave it with the government, they will waste it. Seriously, they will waste it on useless things. You are better off taking it and putting it into your business and making your business successful and enjoying it while it's there.
So Bruce, top 3 grants. What are the top 3 grants that?
Well, probably the top 3. Let's just take a little bit step back. Grants are either entitlement grants or discretionary. The top two are entitlement grants. If you comply with the legislation, they have to pay you. R&D tax incentive, it's there. Either 45% or 15%, depending on the size of the company and whether you have profits or losses. It's there. If you comply with the legislation, you get paid. Next one would probably be export grant. If you are promoting a product or service overseas, let's come back. If you're promoting a product or service, not necessarily made by yourself, to non-residents, that picks up duty-free shops, that picks up tourists, that picks up theme parks, that picks up hotels. So consultants have got out there and pretty much worked the legislation to make sure that we can get as much as we possibly can for as many people as we possibly can. So there's money there. If you're promoting a product or service, it doesn't need to be new. You can make it in China, sell it in the US and still get an export grant in Australia. What a lucky country. The next one coming down is probably Commercialisation Australia, which Veronica touched on. It has effectively 4 streams. You have the skills and knowledge, which is at the bottom end. They'll give you 80% of your money there. You've then got proof of concept, which is not R&D proof of concept, it's commercialisation proof of concept, getting in the market, proving the market wants it. You then go to early stage commercialisation, up to $2 million, dollar for dollar. And you've got experienced execs. If you've got a business that's out there that's trying to make things happen, but you need some people, maybe to employ someone in the US, someone in Japan, there's up to $350,000 there to cover that exec over 2 years. And yes, it's discretionary, but if you know how to do it, it's really not that hard.
Well, that's the key, isn't it? I mean, I've been through some of these processes before. They can be quite complicated. What would you recommend for how do they go through that process?
Well, our process is, I guess, like anyone. If you were driving from Sydney to Brisbane and there's cheap petrol in Broken Hill, don't go out there. It's not worth it. So I like to meet with people, talk to them about what is your business doing, where do you want to take it, what's your journey. If there's a grant to help you achieve those objectives, it's worth claiming. Don't change direction to get a grant. Take it as a bonus. So that when you've made that commercial decision, you're happy with that decision irrespective of whether you get the money or not. So it's a bonus. There is no loans out there. The government will not give you a loan. They're not a bank. They're not very good at running a business, not very good at running a government.
Okay, thanks, Bruce. We'll now conclude with Bruce's stand-up comedy routine. Thanks, excellent, Bruce. Thank you very much indeed.